Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the We Weren't There podcast. I'm your host, Max.
And I'm your host, Ben.
So today, we're going to be talking about the Roman monarchy. So how much do you know about that, Ben?
I know, like, the two bros, the famous fratricide, the whole wolf story. I know about the first one. And I know about, I think the second one is Numa.
Numa's number 2, yeah.
Number 2, yeah. And I know he has, like, vague religious significance, but I don't know, like, any of the specifics. And then I know about Tarquinius Superbus. Yes, that was his name. I just remember Tarquinius Superbus, as I call him.
Yeah.
Tarquinius Superbus, and all the stuff in between is like, even then.
The
but
best
I know
stuff is in between.
so yeah, I know they exist, but beyond that, I'm like,
Well, do they
I'm a bit
exist? We'll
lost.
get into that.
oh, okay.
Do they really exist? Or did they really exist? So
I think they still exist. It's like Tupac and Elvis. They're still
there
around.
somewhere. Well, Romulus might, depending on your interpretation of the story.
Okay.
So basically, tradition holds that the Roman monarchy, and when I say tradition, this is the Romans themselves would have held this, later Romans, that the monarchy existed from 753 BC to 509. That's the dates we get.
That's what they say. So there's no like corroboration in like archaeology.
We'll get to that, but as far as the founding of Rome, because it's much easier to trace archaeologically than, say, the assassination of the last king.
Right.
Or the exile of the last king. If I remember correctly, it's within, I know it's close, but I think it's within a few decades. Like, you could give or take a few.
Okay.
Like, it's pretty close to the actual founding date. We don't know if it's 753 for real because we don't have technology that dates things that precisely.
Right.
But
That'd be quite
roughly
precise.
around that time is correct. That's when we start to see, like, people settle on the Seven Hills where Rome is today.
Okay.
Whether they would have considered themselves Roman, I have no idea. We'll see.
We'll find out.
But there is a city or a group of people that inhabit there around the same time.
Gotcha.
So most of my most of my stories and the history of this comes from Livy, because he's one of the only sources we have on the early Roman history, and he really doesn't care about it. He devotes like 5 books of his 170 book trees on the early Roman history. And there's also
Well, they assume you already know it.
yeah,
I'm sure.
but he also just cares more about the Republic.
Oh, okay.
Like, his whole thing is basically this is the prelude to the Republic.
Okay.
It's all how it's important to later history. And there's also Dionysius of Halicarnassus, who's a Greek, who writes a lot about the kings. He loves them. He writes a lot about them. And then there's little fragments, like Polybius writes a bit about certain kings. And we also have a few fragments of like inscriptions and stuff. But generally, Livy, Dionysius are our 2 big sources. And for me, it's mostly Livy.
Okay. Why not go heavy on the guy who loves the kings?
Because he's writing later than Livy, even, I think, if I remember right. And also, he has a tendency to add a lot of stuff. Like, Livy is trying to be historical. He fails a lot, but he's trying to be historical. Dionysius leans a lot more into the mythological.
Right.
Like, there's a lot more direct intervention from the gods and stuff, which you don't see in Livy. So, in my opinion, Livy's more accurate. But where there's gaps in Livy, I filled it in with Dionysius, basically.
Okay. Makes sense.
So that's my methodology, if you will. It's basically the only methodology you can do. There's so little on this time period. There's even an argument that we should only really consider Roman history to have started in 338 because it's when we have reliable histories.
Right.
I think that's kind of boring because then you neglect all this. So anyways, the first king of Rome, as you probably know, is Romulus.
Classic.
Which you probably don't know is the whole Romulus story. So according to Livy and Dionysius, they agree on this. Romulus and his twin brother...
yeah, that's true. They were twins. I don't know why I forget they were twins.
It's actually really interesting. So they're royalty. They're born to the son, who is never named, the son of the king of a place called Alba Longa, which is really close to Rome.
Alba Longa.
Doesn't exist anymore. It was right beside Rome.
Okay.
You got to remember this too. These are going to sound like really grand. Like, all of these kings are going to sound like really grand and vast stories. This all takes place around Rome or like Tuscany. Like, some of these towns are literally within walking distance of each other. They have this huge rivalry with an Etruscan city called Vi, which is like 10 miles away. Like, you can walk there and back in a day.
Yeah, well, that's how you can develop a beef. You need to make sure you can come by and
So,
insult each other on occasion.
The Romans themselves consider this stuff really important, but it's very localized to central Italy. So he's the king of a city called Alba Longa, their grandfather, and then his son has these kids. And basically what happens is their great uncle, so the king's brother, overthrows him, becomes king, and then murders Romulus and Remus's father.
Ouch. And his name is never mentioned.
No. I don't know if it's just because it's lost to time or I couldn't find it. Maybe it's mentioned somewhere, but I don't think
he's not the important one. He just gets murdered.
Romulus is the important one, and Remus, I guess, too. But the circumstances of their birth are really interesting because basically if you believe the more quote-unquote historically accurate version, what happens basically is their father impregnates a Vestal Virgin who is not supposed to do that because she's a Vestal Virgin.
Oh, jeez.
And that's why they're not found out, because it's a secret pregnancy. So that's why when the great uncle takes power, they escape getting killed.
Okay.
Immediately, because she keeps her pregnancy a secret because she's a Vestal Virgin. If you believe the mythological version, she's impregnated by Mars, the god of war.
Gotcha.
So they have a godly blood in them. Either way, after they're born, the great uncle finds out about this. He's pissed. He orders his slaves to kill them, to throw them into the Tiber River. But it's raining really, really, really hard. So the Tiber's overflowing. The slaves like, screw this. I'm not drowning to kill these kids. And he leaves them on a mountain. He's like, the elements will get them. Oh
God.
He goes back. He tells them, yeah, they're dead. As in a lot
I
of these
feel like
stories.
that happens often. Is that like
Hercules
people with kids?
Too, it's like
they're like, well, I don't want to kill a baby. Or like, I don't want to kill a child.
Well, again, there's also like they say it's because of the river. I think a lot of this would have been. It's also that they don't want to kill kids. It's like fucked up.
But like I think that happens like in Iran, like in the Iranian empires a lot too.
Yeah.
I think that's what like King Cyrus. The whole thing is that like, oh, I'll have a servant do it, and then they have someone else do it, and then they have someone else.
Yeah,
do
they
it.
keep pawning off until someone gives it to a. Like in this case, it's they get found.
I wonder why they're not comfortable killing children.
At least they're not. I mean, he's an awful dude, but no one wouldn't kill children. He gets someone else.
There's
to kill
a
the
lion, all right. He might be evil, but he's not a monster.
Anyways, after that, this is the part that most people know: is they're adopted by a wolf. That's how they don't starve to death. They like suckle on a female wolf, and they live in a cave for a while until they're found by a herder, like a sheep herder.
Okay.
And they get adopted, and he knows who they are because he knows this. He's a guy from Alba Longa. Like they're still living in the same city. It's
not that far away.
It's like a tiny village. Like I'm calling this a kingdom. It's really not that big. This is like Iron Age Italy.
No, it's it's like the Sumerian kingdoms of it's like
I'm God Emperor of the world, and it's 3 cities on the Tigris.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get raised by this rancher, and they don't know who they are.
Okay.
But he does, and eventually their adoptive father is involved in a big political tussle where the supporters of the previous king, so their actual grandfather and their great uncle are fighting, and those two get involved, and they're like 16 or 17. The chronology, and you're gonna see, is like all messed up.
Yeah, ripe fighting age.
Yeah, the chronology of this makes no sense, but anyways, they're said to be like, they're becoming adults.
Right.
And they manage. They're siding with the guy they don't know is their great grandfather, and they fight off these people. So their adoptive father decides this is the time to tell them who they are. So they're rightfully pissed.
To know your destiny.
Yeah, they're pissed. So they decide to, in brief, reinstall their grandfather on the throne. Everyone's happy. Evil great uncle's dead.
No one disagrees with this move at all.
Well, he's like a tyrant. The great uncle. It's not really important. Anyways.
Okay.
They get installed. Then they're like, okay, what do we do now? We've kind of peaked. We're like 17. We've won a civil war, which was probably.
I mean, that's a pretty good thing to do at 17. To win a civil war.
So they decide, let's go found a city. Him and his twin brother.
It's crazy that back then you could just do that.
You could just do that. I mean, they were rich, right? Like the grandsons of nobility.
It's like homesteading, but extra.
So they go to where they were originally abandoned along the Tiber, which is where Rome is today, the 7 hills of Rome. And they go on those 7 hills and like, we're going to found a city here. Except they disagree on what hill to found the city.
There's 7.
There's 7. So you'll notice there's also 7 kings of Rome.
Oh. I guess that'd be symbology or more...
numerology. Yeah. So Romulus claims that the best hill would be it's the Palatine Hill, and Remus claims that the better hill would be the Aventine Hill. So they decide, okay, we'll wait for an omen from the gods to decide, as is basically what all Romans do.
Right.
So first, Remus sees 6 vultures. Birds are a good sign in Roman religion in general.
The divine chicken.
Yeah, it's always a good sign when there's birds. This happens a lot. So he sees 6 of them fly over his hill. So he's like, the gods want that. And then Romulus is like, wait. Then later in the day, Romulus sees 12 fly over his hill.
Boy.
So he goes, well, I got more. But then Remus goes, doesn't matter. Mine happened first. Therefore, I'm right because of priority. They get into this scuffle, and they help. There's also other people with them because they're coming to steal a city.
Okay.
They kind of divide themselves into 2 camps. What happens next is unclear. Either one of Romulus' supporters kills Remus. Romulus himself cracks him over the head.
I always hear the one that Romulus himself kills Remus.
Yeah, and in that version, he does a whole thing where they're like, okay, we're going to do 2 cities. So he plows like a line between the 2 of them, and Remus steps over it, so he cracks him over the head with a rock.
Yeah,
that's the Dionysus version.
I heard the one where it's supposed to be like about a wall, not like about a a line in the
There's
dirt.
a few different versions, but at the end of the day, what happens is they all agree is that Remus is dead. So that's why they're not called the Remans, and we have the Romans instead.
I wish Reem. It was the great empire of Reem.
The Reman Empire. So no, then Romulus, since he's the sole surviving brother, gets what he wants. It's founded on the Palatine Hill.
It's so crazy. That's not like, oh, I will name it after my brother in his honor since we've lost his life. It's no, I won. It's my city.
It's also really weird because killing your family in general in Roman society is like really frowned upon, as in most cultures. But this is like not at all addressed. Especially
but they're from Alba Longa. They're not people.
That's true. They're not Romans yet.
Exactly. They're not Romans, so who cares?
So he establishes the city, if you believe all this. Again, we're going to get into like the real stuff, but this is like how Livy tells it. He establishes the city. Then he starts doing this takes place over many, many years. He reigns for he reigns from 753 BC to 716 BC.
753. Okay, yeah, that's like 40 years.
40 odd years. So all this is going to happen over a long period of time, but basically as the city grows, like it becomes kind of a haven for like outcasts and people from all over the place to kind of like take asylum.
Nice.
And I'm
sure no one will be upset by this.
No. And then he decides to establish like how they're going to govern themselves and etc. So he's the one who starts the tribe system in Rome.
Okay.
So these later on in Livy's day become kind of like voting blocks. They're a bit like the Electoral College to really oversimplify, where basically you all vote and like whoever wins. So like if there's two candidates, say like, I don't know, Gaius and Marcus or something.
Okay.
If Gaius gets 51% of that tribe's vote, he gets like the one electoral vote for that group.
Okay.
So it's like divisions for elections and also divisions for taxation and for conscription. So they're all required to provide.
Yeah, that really does sound like the Electoral College.
Yeah.
But it's also administrative blocks, yeah.
They're required to provide, this time, 100 soldiers. So that's where the centurion like system comes from.
Okay.
Because it's like a century of soldiers. And they're required to provide also cavalrymen. It's like not important, but
okay. But he is king, right?
Yeah.
It's still like a monarch, like a sovereign. But there's a voting system?
Basically what happens... Well, no, like this is in Livy's time they become a voting block.
Oh, the tribes become
right now they're
blocks.
just like you guys have to provide us with 100 soldiers and you have to give us this much money, basically.
Okay, so for now they're just kind of administrative districts.
And I forgot, he's basically... The reason he becomes king is because he's acclaimed king by the people. And because he's already the ruler. So
yeah, I mean, he founded the city.
They give him the title of Rex, like king. And he's like, whatever. Later on, you'll see there's a system that comes into place for this, but right now he's just like so popular that they make him king.
Yeah.
So it's
like George Washington.
He creates the basic administrative divisions of Rome. He takes 300 of those guys, those cavalrymen, to make a personal bodyguard around him. That's like his honor guard. And he also creates the Senate, really crucially, with 100 of the most important men from the most important families, and all the patricians in Rome claim their descent from these 100 guys.
Okay.
More or less. It gets bigger later, but basically, like if
so they're like an advisory body for now, I guess.
Right now, yeah. They basically, right now, Romulus, if he's got a problem, he goes to war a lot. He'll go to the Senate and ask for advice, and that's where they draw generals and stuff from. But it's not. They don't really have any real legal power.
Right. Okay. So it really is just like a council of smart people.
A council of the aristocracy.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the court.
It's the court. Yeah. And then he dies. In 716. A whole lot of versions of this. One of them, he dies in a storm. There's one where he's like ascends into godhood under the auspices of the.
That's what Romulus is my god.
Yeah,
that's the one I choose to believe.
He does get worshipped later on. So I guess some people believe this,
or he dies like in the people storm. Such as me. Don't you know I'm a believer in Romulanism?
Pagan, yeah.
Not a pagan. He's just my one god. Romulus is just my one god.
And then he dies. And then I didn't talk about the rape of the Sabines because it's really complicated and I don't have time.
Okay.
But basically, there's this. I'm gonna talk about it for 2 seconds. There's no women in Rome. It's mostly men.
Uh-oh.
They march over to the. Again, this sounds like a big conquest. It's a village like 3 miles over. They kidnap a bunch of the women and they bring them back, and that's how the women appear in Rome.
And now they can make babies.
There's a lot of you can do a lot of interrogation about what that's supposed to mean as like a foundation myth and like what that says about.
Well,
Roman
it means
people.
that women aren't people and they haven't been from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's glorified in a weird way, considering you're gonna see how much Romans like hate like sexual violence later on, at least nominally. I don't have time to get into it. But
it is very weird how in the beginning it's like this guy kills his brother, they commit sexual violence.
It's not called the kidnap, it's called the rape of the Sabines. Like that's
and yet they're like, but all this is not chill to do today.
But it was a different time.
It's a different time.
Iron Age, Actually,
you know what? I guess it's not that different. People say that all the time these days. They're like, it was a different time. You can't judge them based off of the morality of today.
And this is important because then the Sabines and the the Romans become pretty linked together to the point where eventually the Sabines are just known as Romans, but not early on. But they get assimilated pretty fast. Anyways, the point is, the next guy who comes out is a Sabine.
Oh.
He's a Sabine king. And the reason this happens is because after Romulus dies, there's not really an established way of picking a new king.
Does he have like sons or something?
I don't think so. And if they do, they were never in the running for monarchy.
They're legitimate, I guess. If he did have any.
They don't do a whole lot of hereditary monarchy in ancient Rome.
That is interesting.
Because what happens here basically becomes the precedent for the future. So there's a whole year where all the senators take turns having the power of the king for like 5 days each or something.
Well, that's not a very useful.
It's because they couldn't pick anyone, and they had this big debate. There was two factions.
Imagine the one of the 5-day kings declares war, and then they just switch it over to some other king. Like, oh, it's your war now, buddy.
Yeah, it was not an efficient system of government. So eventually, the compromise candidate is an outsider because he's not a Roman. So he has less, like, he's not attached to these families. His name's Numa.
They pull a Sweden and they're like, let's get this French marshal in here.
He's a Sabine. He gets picked by the Senate. His first action is to disband Romulus's like honor guard. Livy says this is because it's an act of like extend the olive branch. Like, I'm not going to kill all my political opponents now. Like, I'm like a peace king is what he's trying to establish, basically.
I guess, yeah, when you have like a bodyguard at that point, like what are they called later on? The Praetorian Guard, right? They end up being like a secret police that you could just kind of sick on anybody if they're your bodyguards.
Yeah, and especially when you're in a small, like, again, this is early Rome. Like, this is not a big population. When you have that many men at your disposal, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah, and especially when they directly work for you, it's like, well, at that point, they're just your bruisers, right? They're your your goons.
Livy's like, it's probably because he wanted to establish that he's a king of peace and not of war, and it's true in the sense that as far as Livy tells us, there was a lot less war during his time. Romulus is a very war-heavy king. He conquered a lot of people. He did the rape of the Sabines, a lot of kidnapping and burning of villages. Yeah. Numa's less on that.
The fratricide didn't at all foreshadow this.
Maybe there's something that cracked in him that day. I don't know.
I mean, imagine killing your twin brother. It's not just your brother, your twin brother.
Who's basically been your like only constant in life since you were like cast out from your city.
I think that would break something in you.
Numa comes in charge. He's credited by Livy and Dionysius and most Roman historians. Like, the stories I'm telling you now is basically what they would tell Roman school children to like explain Roman society. So you're going to notice a trend here where each king established something really important in Roman society. Romulus is like the city and the Senate. Numa is the religion. He builds the first temples to Jupiter. He also creates the office of Pontificate Maximus, so like the head of religion, and also the Vestal Virgins come into being.
Yes.
Then the religious orders come into being under him.
Okay.
He's a religion king.
Couldn't he like summon lightning or something?
Numa?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know. That's what I heard at one point.
He's also known for writing, supposedly, none of these survived, like hundreds of books. Like, he was a very intellectual king.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's like his legacy. And he ruled from 715 to 672 BC. They all reigned for a really long time.
715 to 672?
Yeah.
So another like 40 years.
They average about 40 to 35 years.
Okay.
He dies. Not anything particularly interesting. He just
he was a king of peace, I imagine.
Then we get Tullius Hostilius. Can you guess what he's known for?
Hostility?
He loves war. He loves killing things. He's not actually known for establishing much in Rome. What he is known for is conquering Alba Longa, where the Romans like claim their heritage from.
Okay.
So they're going to war with Alba Longa, and he's like, I don't think I want our people to kill each other in the field of battle. What if we just sent 3 of our greatest champions each? Whoever wins that fight wins the city. So each side.
I want to watch that movie.
Yeah, each side sends 3 triplets.
Triplets.
Yeah,
oh
and
my God.
The Romans win, obviously, because they're Rome.
Is this why we're not talking about the Alba Longan Empire?
And they like vassalize, like they become a tributary state of Rome, basically. They're like
okay, so they don't like directly govern it.
No, they're not Roman citizens.
Demand taxes
at this point. It's a key point. They're just like, you pay us tribute and you join us in war.
Okay, but I mean, like the city can govern itself.
Yeah, they have a king still.
Okay.
Who later on, still Tullius Hostilius. They're at war with the Etruscans. This becomes a theme. This is when the wars with the Etruscans really pick up, is in his reign. And he's fighting with them, and because they're a protectorate of Rome, they're supposed to come to his aid in battle. The king, I'm just going to find his name, because it's easier. Medius Fufidius.
Medius Fufidius?
Yeah, that's his name.
What type of Dr. Seuss stuff is this?
He's the name of the king of Alba Longa. It's probably his Latinized name. Anyways, he decides he's going to watch the battle between the Etruscans and Romans and sit on the hill and join whatever side's winning.
With whatever ancient form of popcorn they had.
Yeah, he was sitting there. He's waiting to see who's on the winning side. He's like hedging his bets, you know?
That's like a way to make like everyone upset.
Yeah,
like how is anybody supposed to be like, oh yeah, you seem trustworthy?
Hostilius takes this personally. He wins the battle against the Etruscans, and then he captures Medius, and he's like, yeah, you want to do that for the crime of treachery? Basically, this is a thing that's never repeated in Roman history. He ties him to the two ends of him to chariots, and he has the horses go off in opposite directions. He's like ripped in half.
Ooh.
And this, like, Livy is like, this is messed up. Even by our standards, this is like messed up. So he's really known for that, for being a bit of a nutter and like a really big. But he's not viewed as a bad guy, just like a really aggressive war Roman.
He's not a bad guy.
Because
he just had a guy tied to two chariots.
Yeah, but you see, he believes in honorable warfare. He wouldn't have done that to an honorable opponent, but because his opponent was like a cheat who was like waiting to see who wins, it's like valid.
That's my favorite justification. It's that but like he doesn't deserve any respect.
And this is the point where Rome absorbs the city. So either in some versions they just burn it to the ground, and there's a new city that's like a colony that's established of it, or they just conquered the city.
Every time they say that, I don't believe them. It's like what they say with Carthage.
Yeah.
Like, they destroy it, but it turns out a decade later, there's a giant thriving city that's the same size.
Yeah. But there's no king in Alba Longa anymore. They're absorbed into the Roman kingdom, I guess, at this point. By Hostilius. And then Hostilius dies. Then we get this guy who I'm not going to devote a whole lot of time to because he doesn't do a lot. His name's Ancus Marcius. He reigns from
Ancus Marcius? Ancus Marcius.
And he reigns from 640 to 616 BC.
And 30 years, yeah.
Yeah, he's Numa's grandson. That's about the most important thing to know about him.
The peace-loving guy's grandson is also peaceful, it seems.
Yeah, he is another peace guy. He just likes to build shit. He has wars with like the neighboring people the same way.
Well, okay, so Romulus founded the city, right? Numa, the religious.
Hostilius did like the first big conquest.
Right, the conquest. What's this guy's deal?
Numa's grandson. He's like a weird filler. He did some stuff, but it's really nothing in comparison. He's like
whatever hill he represents wasn't really cool.
Yeah, it wasn't really cool. I mean, you could say that because he's Numa's grandson, they're starting to accept the idea of maybe having a hereditary.
Well, he said he
monarchy.
built stuff, so would it be like infrastructure or like construction?
But I don't even know because it's nothing significant. Because we're gonna get the next guy is the Builder King. He's the one for like building the forum and the sewage system and everything. So I don't know.
I guess he needed two of them for that.
It was a swamp. Anyways,
fair.
Grandson of Numa, he dies. Actually, he doesn't. No, he does have a role to play. I forgot, but it's in regards to the guy who becomes king next.
Okay.
So the next guy, I'm gonna call him by his Roman name because that's what he's mostly known by. He's an Etruscan, so he has another name too. But his name's Lucius Tarquinius because he's.
Oh, Tarquinius. I don't know about that one.
Not Superbus. This is
Superbus'
but
related.
father.
I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically lives in this Etruscan city of Tarquini. He leaves because he can't achieve high political office because he's half Greek, and they just really don't like him because he's half Greek. And as we've established before, Rome is kind of a city for outsiders and outcasts. So right now it's really open to anyone. So he's like, I'm going to make my fortune in Rome.
Okay.
Because his wife convinces him it's a good idea. She's
the Roman dream.
Yeah, the Roman dream. His wife's like, I don't really want to be married. Like, I don't want my husband to never achieve anything. We should go to Rome. So they get on their carriage. They go to Rome. And then according to legend, as he's going to Rome, there's an eagle that comes down and steals his hat. And then it comes and puts it back down on his head like he's crowning him. So his wife is like, that's a sign from the gods. You're going to do great things in Rome.
To be fair, I think if an eagle put a hat on me, I'd probably take the same sign.
Probably. So yeah, he leaves his city. He goes to Rome. He's already kind of a merchant, wealthy-ish dude. So when he arrives there, he's got a bit of clout and he sets up businesses and he kind of makes a name for himself. So much of a name for himself that Ancus Marcius, the king, decides to appoint him as the legal guardian of his children. So he like tutors the kids. So he weaves his way into the court.
Okay.
So basically, he tutors the children, and then when the king dies, he's like in the will. He asks the Senate to acclaim him as king. And the Senate agrees because at this point, the one who really picks who's king is the Senate and the people, but represented by the Senate.
Okay, so the Senate does have that kind of power.
Yeah, they acclaim the next monarch. I mean, they're supposed to. It's where they get their legitimacy from because it's from the people.
Okay.
So he writes in his will, please acclaim this guy. They like him enough. He's pretty well regarded in Rome, so they acclaim him as king.
Yeah, wealthy, smart enough to educate.
Yeah, he's an Etruscan, but that doesn't seem to bother them, which is really interesting.
I mean, they had the Sabine, right? I think that, like you said, without the
outcasts. Yeah, but right now they're fighting the Etruscans, right? There's like all that conflict.
Yeah, but the Etruscans, he left because he wasn't accepted by the Etruscans.
Yeah, he's half
I
Greek
imagine
as well.
Yeah, so if they trust that, then they're like, okay, well, if they rejected him, it's also kind of a middle finger to like, well, you guys didn't like this guy.
True.
He's going to be our king, and we're going to kick your ass.
Maybe I think his father was from Corinth, if you're curious. He's a Corinthian Greek.
Okay, so there's that Greek connection, I guess, that the Romans will later be obsessed with.
And he's the one who's known for building great projects. So when he becomes king, he's the one who builds, like, according to Livy, the Forum, and he drains the swamp, and he builds the sewage system and everything. And we'll get into this when I talk about the historicity of all this, but there is actually, like, a lot of projects that are built around this time. Whether it's by him, we don't know.
Okay. It might be, like, representative of the Etruscans helping them build stuff.
Yeah, but basically, like, there's a lot of development in Rome around this time, and it's attributed to him. He builds, like, paves the Forum and builds
Okay, so the last guy really is useless. It's just this guy is the builder.
Well, he sets into motion this guy coming into power. And then, interestingly, these next three are all very closely related. And, by the way, he reigns from 616 to 578 BC.
Another 40, 30 years.
Yeah.
We're really even here. Suspiciously
also
even.
very long for ancient times.
Yeah, I mean,
conspicuously long.
For a small town, like for if you're governing that many people, like we're not talking about like the large Roman Empire here. I could see
it's too nice, you know.
It is too nice, but I think rulers ruling for that long isn't as rare if you're talking about like city states or like that kind of level. You gotta remember,
Rome is like, in the words of my professor, they're swamp people right now. They're like they're really
like if they have a ruler, they don't really have that many other people with that kind of experience to like replace the guy in charge, especially if he's doing a reasonably good job. Like I'm sure there's some people in between that were like short-lived and forgotten on purpose. But like if a guy's in there for like 10 years and he lives long enough, he could be there for 40.
It's also really interesting to note that the only reason we give this much credence to Rome right now is because of what they become later. Like, if you asked a person back then, they'd be like, it's like a backwater town. Like, the Etruscans are where all the big
swamp people criminals.
Basically, yeah, who, like, kidnap women.
Yeah, and who kill their own family.
And burn Etruscan farms and stuff like that. So, you know, the only reason... It's important to put in perspective. It's easy to think that Rome is, like, this special ordained city because of what happened later. It's also an effort, like the reason it sounds like that is also because this is an effort by later Romans to justify why they're this cool.
Right.
But really in the day, they were a town that people would have known of, but it's like, they're like a shitty little backwater.
That keeps raiding our countryside.
They're like right on the border of where the Latins are, who are like more closely related culturally to the Romans, and where the Etruscans are in the Tuscany.
Right, so they're also almost like a frontline kind of
they're like a border town.
Border town, yeah. Culturally.
He's known for his great building projects. He's pretty well liked, all in all. Anyways,
the forum's pretty chill.
Later on, while he's reigning, his wife sees a slave in the with a, how do we put this, like a halo of fire above his head, like a slave baby.
Oh, okay.
With a halo of fire above his head while he's sleeping, and like I can only imagine that everyone's like, "Holy shit, we have to put this kid out." And she's like, "No, it's an omen from the gods." And he wakes up unharmed, and she's like, "Okay, this is a good omen. He needs to be the next king."
Okay.
And his name is Servius Tullius.
Servius, okay. Yeah,
which is...
I feel like I've heard that name before. Probably in relation
to It also
harkens...
It also has like its roots in the word for slave.
Yeah.
Anyways, he might have been a slave. Livy gives us two stories. He's either just a slave, or he's kind of a royal hostage, so they went to war with another city. His mother was taken as like a... You know, when they take royal hostages to like ensure peace, and he was born in Rome.
Okay.
But either way, he's part of the court. He's either like a slave, like actually just from like really low origins, or his mother was like a royal princess.
I mean, for them to kind of accept that, I imagine it'd be very difficult for them to accept a slave child of low birth.
I think that might be why Livy gives the other story where it's like, no, because he's more insistent that...
Like, even them, they're like, the realistic one's this one.
Yeah, the realistic one is that he was a...
Yeah, because then you'd still be seen like lowly, so I imagine that contemplation would still happen if it was like the hostage of like a different place. But at that point,
it's not so unrealistic.
Yeah, because then they'd accept like, oh, they have some like royal blood in them, like they have some sort of great lineage. But they also get the chance to remind him that like you still have your origins are still lowly within our town.
Yeah,
because I can't imagine a slave society just picking a slave to be their next king. I can't.
I don't think it would happen.
Even if some sort of divine action happened, the owner would just snuff it out. That I know.
So yeah, basically then from this point on, they decide they're going to educate him and like kind of treat him as if he was part of the family, whatever. He's like very close to the royal family. Then he gets, well, when Tarquinius dies, he becomes king. He's acclaimed by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Not super unanimously, but still acclaimed by the Senate.
Oh, even this telling, the semi-mythological telling, it was semi-unanimous.
Oh, you'll see, because Tarquinius has kids, too. He has two sons. So he becomes king. He reigns from 578 to 535 BC. He has 2 daughters, one named Tullia, because that's just how Roman names work. We've got Tullia the elder, Tullia the younger. And they both marry the sons of Tarquinius.
Maintaining the lineage, I guess.
The thing is, Livy says, there's basically, and this is simplifying a bit, but this is more or less what he says, there's an evil Tullia, there's an evil Tarquinius, and there's a good Tullia, there's a good Tarquinius. They don't marry each other. The evil Tarquin marries the good Tullia and vice versa. So the first thing those people do is they conspire to murder their husbands and wives so they can marry each other. The 2 evil ones can marry each other because they want to be in power.
Right.
And they're like wicked. And Tarquinius, who goes on to become Tarquinius Superbus, is really, really miffed that his father didn't give him the kingship. And so it's to some slave that he really hates. So while this is going on, there's lots of scheming. Tullius is known for big political reforms.
Okay.
He's the one who extends suffrage to the plebeians. This is when they start to be able to vote. He establishes the assembly where they, like the legislative assembly.
Okay.
So now the Senate becomes kind of, if you want to imagine in modern politics, the upper house, and then the plebeians are the lower house. So
that's how they invented bicameral semi-democracy.
They create the legislation, and the Senate approves the legislation.
Yeah,
and the king's just kind of allowed to override that stuff. But like in theory,
it sounds like constitutional monarchy. Yeah,
that's what Polybius says. But so yeah, he's known for being a man of the people, given his origins.
Right.
He's also establishes the census because he wants to do voting, and in order for that, he has to establish as a citizen, and he establishes the census, and he himself becomes the first censor, which becomes an office later on.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. He has to establish a system by which they can kind of avoid fraud.
Yeah, and also it's also easier to administer taxes and conscription if you know how many people live where and everything.
So like establishes kind of more of a bureaucracy, it sounds
like.
Yeah,
he's the state bureaucracy and extends suffrage, and he gives legislative power to the plebs. It's a big one that really pisses off the Senate and a lot of senators.
I can imagine that's when they were like, oh, he must have been actually the child of a slave. Yeah. If he's willing to institute voting rights for plebeians. Like I imagine like maybe the royalty one's the original one, and then people spread the rumor that he's actually a slave because he has all these things like, oh, he's like nice to poor people. Like that must mean he has lowly origins.
He wants them to have a say in government, and only Roman citizens there are still slaves. Like this is plebeians. These are small holding Roman farmers and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's still within this kind of
pretty
society.
Radical.
It's pretty radical.
It's pretty radical for
especially when you're talking about a society with a king there. Like
in 500 BC or whatever, 550 BC.
Although sorry, I don't want to interrupt you here, but I do think that is very interesting because it is kind of. It's similar to the later European kingdoms when they're trying to establish kind of absolutist states. What they would do is they would kind of give power to the non-aristocratic class, Louis XIV, the Sun King. He had the new men, right? So it was non-aristocratic people who'd still give ministerships and have very powerful places within his government specifically, so that the aristocracy around him. So it'd be I imagine, especially if the senators don't like a lot of these changes, he's doing it kind of to go around the senators. It's to give himself more power by having a more loyal base among these small holders.
Because he's basically indebted him. He's basically indebted the plebeians to him.
Yeah. So I just want to say really history never changes because these very similar political maneuvers that would happen millennia later, which is super interesting.
It says something about the nature of absolute rule, I think, and about kingship and everything, that it's kind of the same.
It's very, very similar dynamics, even if it's on a smaller scale, right? Because we're talking about France, we're talking about millions of people. This is 3 towns and some countryside.
Yeah, in the Iron Age Italy. Also, he expands the Senate. And adds 100 new. They become 200. He has 100 new senators of basically new families that have gained prominence, but were locked out of politics because they weren't part of the original 100.
Right, that makes sense.
So he further dilutes the power of the old aristocracy.
Okay, yeah, it's all these moves to dilute the old aristocracy. I see.
All this is happening, and also the evil Tarquin and Tarquinius and evil Tullia have killed their husband and wife, and they've married each other. No one goes, that's weird. They both their spouses died under mysterious circumstances.
So wait. Now they know that they both murdered each other's spouses, but at the time they're it must be a mysterious death.
Well, I mean, I think it was one of those things they couldn't prove, but Definitely, Servius had a good idea of what was happening, like, like the king. But it's like, I think it was dubious enough where he couldn't.
Yeah, well, especially because it is still one of his daughters. That's
and
inspiring in the plot.
So basically, then what happens is they murder him.
Oh.
What happens is Tarquinius bursts into the Senate with a bunch of armed men, like Livy calls him a mob of thugs.
Yeah.
To find the king where he's sitting on his, like, not throne, but I forget what the Romans call it, but basically his throne. And he's like, "You're the son of a slave. You have no right to be king." And he, like, degrades him and insults him, whatever.
Well, he's married to his daughter. All right.
Yeah, we talked about that in class. It's like, just don't think about it too hard.
Gotcha.
She hates her dad, though. I don't know why. I think Livy says it's because she's power hungry and she wants her husband to become king. But I don't know.
Female agency, what's that? Especially in Roman history, they don't give much to that.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, she's evil.
She's like, yeah, she's evil Tullia.
Yeah,
The other
if only good Tullia.
He calls them wicked. He doesn't call them evil, but he calls them wicked and wicked Tullia and wicked Tarquinius. So they are, like, called evil and good Tullia.
Wicked.
So anyways, he bursts in. There's a big scuffle with the senators who support him, whatever. And eventually he's dragged out into the street and, like, beaten to death.
God damn, the Mussolini treatment.
And then his daughter, who's riding in a chariot, runs over his body. Oh no, what happens? Yes, he runs out of the Senate. He's in an alleyway. He gets beaten to death, and, like, as a final, like, "F you," she runs over his corpse with the chariot.
Jeez.
And this is scandal. Like, Livy's like, this is a scandal. Like, this is part of the reason she's known as Wicked Tullia. And that alley, to this day, according to Livy, in his day, was still known as Crime Alley, or Misfortune. Either Crime or Misfortune Alley.
Crime, isn't that where Batman's parents get
That's
shot?
what I was gonna
Isn't
say.
Crime Alley?
It's known as, like, Crime Alley or Misfortune Alley.
Yeah.
They're part of the
and
city.
many years later, Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne
would get killed in the same place. But yeah, supposedly she's unfeeling to the death of her father and just runs him over as, like, a screw you.
Yeah, well, she's wicked. She's a psychopath.
I'll tell you. And then her and her husband Tarquinius, who becomes known as Tarquinius Superbus, which is not the proud in a good way. It basically means he's really prideful. That's
okay.
Where he gets his nickname from, Superbus, is that he's an arrogant.
Yeah, Superbus.
Yeah, he's really arrogant. And they go on, as Livy describes, basically a spree of, like, political killings. They just murder everyone that's opposed to them.
No.
Shocker. And then there's a guy who escapes all these killings by the name of, if I need to remember right, he is, Lucius Junius Brutus.
Brutus.
Yeah. Do you know why his name's Brutus?
No.
It's a nickname. It means the stupid or the dull.
Okay.
And basically, he's a high-up senator. He escapes these purges by pretending to be such an idiot that he's not a threat.
So he'd be able to dodge the draft. Got it.
Yeah. By the way, Tarquinius reigns from 534 to 509 BC. He's the last king of Rome.
Another 30 years. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one where I find it hard to believe. If everyone hated him and he was so wicked, for him to stay in power for 30 years.
But, like, he's known as a tyrant. He kills senators. You know, that's a crime. He enslaves the plebeians. Like, he removes all their power, basically. He's like, no. And he forces them to do, like, building projects, like, in temples. Like, he does corvée labor.
Oh, my God.
And he's like, you're building the temples. Like, I just imagine him cracking a whip, like, really comically, like, evil. He's, like, deceitful and treacherous. There's a bunch of examples. Basically, one of them is that he sends his son to a city they're fighting to pretend to be defecting to them, to, like, get intelligence on what they're doing, and then to secretly kill all their rulers. And the Romans are like, that's a dishonorable form of fighting. He's, like, a deceitful liar. There's this really famous story that they're absolutely cribbing from Herodotus, where his son writes him a letter after he's, like, infiltrated the government in that city, and he's like, what do I do now? And the guy who's reading him the letter and his scribe is like, well, what do you want me to write? And he just knocks all the heads off the flowers in the garden, which is straight up cribbed from Herodotus. There's a Corinthian tyrant. I think he does the same thing with poppies. He knocks all the heads off because he's like, kill all the ruling men.
All right.
So I just think it's interesting that they cribbed that from the Greeks.
Yeah, I mean.
But yeah, he's like the point is he's deceitful, he's dishonest, dishonorable, awful guy. People hate him.
Yeah, he's evil. He's evil Tullius.
His kid's also evil. His son is Sextus Tarquinius. I think his name's Sextus Tarquinius.
Yeah.
He has another son too. Not important. Sextus Tarquinius is the important one.
Gotcha.
The two of them, at some point, because their father's getting older, want to know who's going to succeed him, and they don't want to kill each other and fight, and they're worried about, like, the political violence that might follow. So their father sends
from their own lived experience.
So their father sends them to Delphi to consult with the oracle. And to accompany them is Brutus. He goes along as a emissary for the Senate.
As the mentally challenged.
Yeah, the idiot
emissary.
Yeah, because they're like, he's no danger. Do what he wants.
Okay.
He's also famously depicted as holding a baton that has another thing inside, and it's basically to say like he's one thing on the outside but another thing on the inside.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of the statues of him.
Interesting.
Anyways, he goes to Delphi with those two brothers who want to find out who's going to be king, and then the oracle says, the first one to kiss your mother will become king.
Okay.
The two of them are like, oh shit, we got to go back to Rome and we'll draw lots for who gets to do it. Brutus reads through in this because he's not stupid. Is like, the oracle really means like the mother of us all, Earth. So he fakes tripping, so he falls down and kisses the ground.
Oh my god!
So he's outplayed them. So then they go back to Rome.
The cave fume lady. She's got some messages for us, and no everyone can't get it.
So they come back to Rome. They draw lots to who gets to kiss their mom. It doesn't really matter because they've been outplayed by Brutus. Then they go to. Then again, they're always involved in war. So they're often all of these guys, Brutus, whatnot, Tarquinius, both Tarquinii.
The Tarquinii.
Yeah, Sextus and Superbus. They go to war. They're in a war camp, and basically what happens. This is what leads to the fall of the monarchy. Is
all right.
After this takes place, they're at war and they're in a war camp, and Sextus Tarquinius is like. He's like in his 20s. He's drunk and he's having a competition with his friends over who has the best wife. So they're having this argument.
Jeez. Men.
All the generals are like, "Oh, my wife's better than yours," and then Sextus is like, "You know how we could prove this? If we went back and checked out what they were doing right, because again, they're fighting wars that are like 10 miles away. Let's go back to Rome and see what our wives are up to right now."
Okay.
So they come back, and I'll just read the quote from Livy because it's too good. But this is what happens: they're coming back to Rome to like. Just surprise their wives, see what they're up to when they're not around.
Right.
So Livy says, the evening shadows were lengthening when they came upon the royal princesses feasting and frolicking with their friends. Then they sped off to Calatia. Though the evening was late, they found Lucretia, who is the wife of an important Roman general, still in the main hall of her home, bent over her spinning wheel, surrounded by her maids as they worked at the lamplight. Lucretia was no doubt the clear winner of the contest.
Okay. Because they're having fun.
Basically,
how dare they?
They went back and all their wives were just like drinking together and like frolicking and like talking.
Socializing?
But one guy's wife, Lucretia, was not doing that. She was bent over her spinning wheel with her maids. So like obviously he's the best wife. Sextus Tarquinius is like I think enraged is the word, but he like gets like a weird lust for her. He's like, "Oh, I want to like defile this woman." Is how it's portrayed, you know?
Disgusting.
It's gross, but that's how it's portrayed in Livy because he's not supposed to be a good guy.
Well, yes, you're telling me.
So then they go back to camp. He sneaks off. He's like, "I'm going to go like seduce that woman."
Okay.
He shows up. I'm not gonna get. It's really graphic, but he breaks into her bedchambers and he like basically he rapes her.
Jesus.
She's horrified by this, evidently.
Clearly,
he threatens her with violence. Is how it gets across. Anyways, and then he goes back to the camp, and then she writes to her husband, and her husband writes to Brutus because they're like allies. They're both senators. Mm-hmm. They go back. They hear the whole story from her. She tells us what happened, and she's like, "You got to avenge me, Nana." And then she stabs herself in the heart. She kills herself.
Jesus.
To like avoid the shame of being raped.
Ugh.
Pretty messed up. This kind of ruins her husband. He's like, what the fuck just happened?
No, that's awful.
And Brutus, who already hates Sextus and his father Superbus, is like, this is the last straw. We're gonna go into Rome, and we're gonna overthrow this messed up government. Mm-hmm. So they basically they spread the word of what happened all around the city. And they gather up like a huge mob and they like drive them out of the city. They exile them from the town, the Tarquin family.
Okay.
And they have to flee to another Etruscan city.
Right.
And this...
right, because the Tarquin, they're the Etruscan.
Yeah, they're the Etruscan family.
Yeah, okay.
And then after that, they're expulsed because of Lucretia's death. Mm-hmm. Then Brutus and her husband, Lucretia's husband, are elected as the first two consuls of Rome in 509.
The first two consuls.
And that's how we get the Republic.
509 BC.
Yeah. That's the mythological founding date.
Okay. Interesting. So it is really funny how the monarchy, it's like there's some sort of like, oh, this is a story, this is what they did, and then these two evil people, they did this evil thing. The evil killed their good spouses, and then they did the evil acts.
They ran over their father, like she ran over her father, which is like in Roman society is crazy considering how much importance they put on the father's ability. Like,
yeah, listen, killing your brother, that's okay. All right, Sometimes you
He had
got
a good reason.
kidnapping
He
women.
was condoned by the gods. He had
Yeah.
the vultures on his side.
Exactly. Kidnapping a bunch of women from a nearby town, that's okay, even if it is horrifying. But this guy did it to this one person.
But she was Roman.
She was Roman. Not only that, but she was the best wife.
Yeah, she was an example. We'll get into this because I want to talk about like all this means basically for Rome. But that's basically the end of the Seven Kings. That's really in brief. There's a lot of weird little stories I could get into, but that's in general what they're all known for. Mm-hmm. To comment on this particular story, the Lucretia one, Livy is writing this when Augustus is instituting all his moral reforms.
Okay.
Augustus is big on regulating the role of women in society. So this might be more a reflection of the values of Livy's time than it would be of what Roman women were like in 509 BC. This is probably much more of an imposition of what Roman men thought Roman women should be like.
Well, yeah. I
think that's pretty obvious, but it's
when it comes to the like throughout, I think all of history, like the gender roles are always like the idealized version that like only the richest may follow to a certain extent, but like, when you're working out in the fields, everyone's working on the fields, right? If ever there's someone who's like a woman who's smart or like has like good ideas, so some men will like use their ideas, and sometimes they'll participate in government or participate in whatever men are doing. Like anytime there's the gendered ideal, it's always that, right? The ideal that like it's an aspiration that is very rarely reached, and I think that's something that I think not enough people recognize.
Yeah, I think you can say that about all of.
I'm
spoiling a little bit of my opinions on this, but I think you can say a lot of this about all the kings of this story are supposed to make a moral point. Their lives, anyways. Not necessarily that you should follow them, but they're all supposed to make a point about how you should behave as a Roman.
I'm assuming how you shouldn't behave.
Well, for Sextus and but for a lot of them, it's like how like an exemplar. But I was curious what you think about how like the historicity of all this. Like how much do you really buy? How much is like. I have a lot of evidence I can present to you.
I imagine it's like all these stories where like there's some truth to it, I'm sure. Like, Rome had a founder, right? And I'm sure that there was, they came from somewhere, which it might have been a nearby town. At some point, some people did implement like the more militaristic side of the town. Someone was the first guy to build stuff. There were people who implemented like the religious practices of the town. So I'm sure there is some historicity to some of it.
Well, if you want to start with that one, do you want to hear the big three theories of
Oh, yes, please.
What happened, how Rome came to be, basically, the founding of the city?
Oh, yes, please.
There's theory one, that Livy's narrative is more or less correct, that there's a guy that founded the city, maybe not Romulus, but similar, that they're basically it's a new town.
Mm-hmm.
These we call them in my class the true believers of Livy.
The true believers.
There's
the Livyites.
There's some suggestion to suggest. There's some things to suggest this. Like he's right about some things, like the building program I was talking about. That what's his name? That the first Tarquinius.
That's Tarquinius did that.
Yeah. Undertook.
It wasn't Servilius or whatever his name was?
No, he was the.
Oh yeah, he's the reforms. Yeah, the political reforms.
There's a lot of evidence that there was like construction of sewage and paving in the Forum around the same time as he was supposed to have reigned. So
okay.
Stuff like that. The second is that if you look at how Rome urbanized, plus the fact that it's right near the Etruscans, and if you look archaeologically, their material culture is practically identical to the Etruscans. And there's weirdly Etruscan kings in their stories. There might have been an Etruscan conquest of Rome. That's a very fringe theory. That the Etruscans conquered the city at some point.
Okay.
There's also the theory that they were just heavily influenced by the Etruscans. They might have been like a client state. That those kings were imposed on them.
Yeah.
There might, it might also just be by proximity. But basically, the second theory is big Etruscan influence.
I mean, the thing, especially when it comes to like material culture, very rarely is that indicative of conquest. Like material cultures span beyond like linguistic culture and like. I mean, ethnic culture, which even when you go that far back, I don't know how much ethnicity is a very useful term.
It's more so like, whose city do I belong to?
Exactly. So like when you go far enough back, like you'll find a bunch of different like language groups will still like, that we can historically place in a certain area will still all share like a material culture. So, unless there's some other like theory of like the Etruscan conquest, other than that, there were some Etruscan kings and they share a material culture. That's why it's a fringe
theory. The idea is that it's the material culture.
Not that it's impossible, but
that there's also the kings kind of, if you want to read into it, it might be a way of reconciling that part of their past, right? Or like an understanding of that to reconcile the Etruscan influences.
But really, like back then, especially if you're like a city-state, it's not that uncommon for someone from another city to end up ruling your city.
Mm-hmm. But it's because like if you project the Roman ideals into the past of like, oh, we shouldn't have like foreign rulers, it's a bit weird that they would say that.
Even the ancient Romans were subject to presentism.
Yeah, presentism. The third model is this really new one. It's called the clan model. This one's not based at all really in literary sources. It's based almost entirely on archaeological evidence.
Okay.
It suggests that they use it to explain a lot of the stuff in the literary sources, but they don't really base it on anything in Livy.
Right, they don't use evidence from the literary sources.
It's more so that you could use this to explain why Livy's saying these things.
Okay.
So basically, the clan model proposed that Italy, the Italian societies were organized more around mobile aristocratic clans rather than cities. So the cities didn't matter as much as like who your family was.
I mean, that makes sense with all like the moving of like, the Alba Longa, and then he goes there, and the Etruscans here. It's all like familial. And
if you're an important family, you'll be an important family no matter where you are, and that Rome was just a good, important meeting point for all those families.
Interesting.
Basically, and then the monarchy was much more ceremonial than you might think. That's implied in Livy, so it'd be more like, in the High King of Ireland at all, how that works? A bit like
I'm familiar with that position. I don't know much about how
essentially
Irish politics worked.
They're not they don't really have much power, but they're basically a symbol that all the clans are working together. Like it's like a symbolic role of like we're gonna to mediate, and like Rome would be that space where they all mediate, where there's no violence.
Right. I mean, that would explain Servilius kind of like trying to dilute the pool. Then it's like if you take that as the way that it worked, that it was a ceremonial role, and that the Senate had more power than they're being led on to have, then it would make sense that Servilius would try to dilute it. Because if it's like, oh yeah, the Senate was an advisory council, and he did his best to dilute the advisory council, it doesn't really make too much sense to me.
That's a really recent one, the clan model. I heard someone critique it because it resembles, weirdly enough, Game of Thrones, and it was written when Game of Thrones was really popular. But no, there's actually a lot of archaeological evidence to support these kinds of ideas, and that would basically just say that Rome was like Rome and all of Central Italy would have been assimilating societies. Like there wouldn't have been like a hard delineation between all these people yet. Like they would have been very open to accepting people from other areas.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like even that's kind of said in the literature itself. It's like, it was a place for outcasts.
It's pretty substantiated as a theory.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it's widely accepted. There's not much that's widely accepted in early Roman historiography.
Right. Careful with the tape.
Yeah. In early Roman historiography. I find that one pretty convincing. I would accept too, maybe there was a monarchy, just not these 7 guys in particular, because it's pretty odd that they all rule for like 40 years.
Monarchy is just kind of a common way of organizing. It's much easier to be like, this one guy's in charge, he makes all the decisions. It's kind of efficient, especially when you're a small town, right? But I imagine as it grows, it's like the politics gets more complicated, and I wonder though how the Republic would come to be if the story that they tell isn't real.
And there's actually evidence that there were kings. I should say that there's inscriptions we have with the word Rex on them that appear in like important ceremonial roles. So it's pretty likely they had a guy who at least had the name and title of king.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So yeah, then I wonder how the Republic came to be if like the kings are semi-fictitious, right?
It might be something similar. Probably a bad king got overthrown. But you'll notice this also mirrors a lot what happened in Athens.
Right.
And that might be an effort to legitimize themselves through the Greeks again.
Yeah, through
because it's a bit like what happened with Solon and with like the tyrants and
that. I mean, although I imagine like that is kind of how it happens, though, right?
Yeah.
It's how many other ways can you create a democracy, or some sort of.
Well, the thing is, they created democracy,
government.
and the Romans would be like, no, we have an aristocratic republic. It's different.
Yeah, but like, still to overthrow a monarchy. If your entire system is built on the fact that there's one guy that's the sovereign, there's kind of has to be some sort of upheaval to end that. You kind of need a good reason for it. So,
but I think it's basically a way. I don't think it's productive to believe they were real people, because they're basically supposed to be idealized figures to represent important parts of Roman society. Like it's too easy that they all create something that's key to what the Romans would consider their own society. Like there's one guy who creates the assembly for the plebeians. There's one guy who creates the Senate. There's another guy who's the religion guy who founds all that.
The religion
that was probably
guy.
Numa.
Yeah.
That would probably be a much more gradual process over many, many kings. But I think the general idea of there being a king in Rome is pretty accepted and seems pretty reasonable to me. As to how the Republic formed, I'm guessing popular unrest from a bad king, but we don't really know aside from the accounts that Livy and Dionysius give us. But if you want to know where they're getting their sources, which I find very interesting, basically they lament themselves that most of the stuff about this time in Roman history was lost when the Gauls,
It was the Gauls, the Cisalpine Gauls.
Yeah, when the Gauls sacked Rome and they burned down the archives.
Right.
So Livy is working off of other authors who are writing before him, who we don't have anymore. We just have fragments. They cite a lot of people that we don't have their books who are writing in. So Livy's writing in Augustus's time, so the the first century BC.
Yeah, it's quite separated. That's 500 years away.
He's citing authors who are writing in the 300 BC.
And even then, that's still 200 years.
200 years removed, but still much closer. But we don't have anything to compare. Like we can't tell. He cites them, but we don't have the original works.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of them, like you said, though, it's like making The Last King sound like as bad as possible. Like 200 years into the Republic, it's like how all like the American history books are like, oh, George was a madman or whatever, when like in reality, the British Parliament had like a lot more to do with
what happened,
colonial management than anything else. It's
but he laments,
either way.
He laments the lack of archives, and also he relies a lot on family histories as well.
Okay,
and those are just by their nature like self-aggrandizing.
Yeah, I mean, they're all senators.
It's senators who want to make their families look good. So a lot of the, because again, like Brutus, for example, is the mythical ancestor of that clan, like the clan of the Brutus that killed Caesar.
Okay. One of the first consuls.
So you'll note the weird similarity in their lives. People of the time notice that too. This is a little side tangent I just found really interesting. There was all kinds of graffiti that we find of like, fulfill your destiny, Brutus. Do what your ancestor did and save the Republic, basically.
Wow.
So there's a lot of self-aggrandizing and like making your family out to be really important that happens too there.
Interesting.
So he's relying on what I would say are pretty flawed sources, and he himself isn't exactly engaging in like modern historiography. Like a lot of Roman history, it's analytic. So he's basically he'll like state he was king during these years. This is what happened these years, and he just kind of lists them. Same thing with the consuls later. Be like consul so and so of this.
It's not like a strict chronology.
Yeah, and also Livy himself, I find really fun in a funny way, notes that the chronology of a lot of these events makes no sense, because if you accept that the second Tarquinius is the son of the first one, the ages don't line up. So Livy's like, oh, he must have been his grandson. He like hand waves a lot of this, but he also notes that the chronology of the ages and stuff.
Right, because they're all like 30, 40 years. So it's like, oh yeah, this guy was king for 30 years and his son, and then there's another guy for 30 years, and then he comes back as a young man and then rules for 30 years.
Because he's described as a young man, and Livy goes, it's weird that he's described as a young man. Must be his grandson. And he like goes...
Well, it doesn't help that in the Roman times, everyone had like the same names. So it's like, well, then it must be... the next guy in line.
Don't get me started on that. There's 12 first Roman names, and then the last names are all the same. That's why they all have like nicknames. But sometimes the nicknames become family names, like Brutus.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like it is easier to hand wave, because like if everyone is named Marcus something, then it's like, oh, this guy, they say his son Marcus is that. Well, it's like, well, it must be the other Marcus,
must be the grandson.
the son of the son there.
So yeah, I don't... It's shrouded in a lot of mystery, is what I would say, basically. And we'll probably never know a lot of this stuff definitively. There's all kinds of fun claims. Some people have claimed they found the tomb of Romulus.
The tomb of Romulus.
I don't buy it. Like modern day archaeologists, I don't buy it. I think it's just a big tomb for a king. In Livy's day, supposedly Romulus's house still existed. That's one thing he cites as evidence.
Oh, that's funny. I'm sure they charge a lot for visitation.
Yeah. That doesn't exist anymore, though.
Oh.
But it's all very flaky, It's all very flaky evidence, and we've got two literary sources who are relying on the same guy. They're both citing the same original author from 300. So really, we've got one literary source.
Yeah. Although, do they say that original source was also based off another source? Because I imagine if it's 200 years later, it's not just like, I remember what happened.
I don't know if they get into it. My guess is that it's based off of both family history, oral tradition, and government records, because by that point, they would have been keeping records of...
Right, before they all got burnt.
Yeah, before they got burnt in the city, in the sacking. But also, even when there are records, sometimes Livy is profoundly disinterested in primary sources. Like, this is unrelated to the kings of Rome. This is a problem that comes up later with his telling of the Republic in history.
Right.
But basically, there's an important guy who... I can't remember his name. But anyways, I'm going on like a tangent. But he manages to defeat an enemy general and steal his armor, which is like a big honor in Roman society. Only one other guy got to do that before him, and that was Romulus.
Damn.
And so you get a big dedication to the Temple of Jupiter. So this guy does this. He may have been a military tribune, or he may have been a consul. That's what's unclear.
Okay.
Fast forward to Augustus' time. Crassus does the same thing. He manages to take armor from a general in single combat.
Oh.
And Augustus doesn't want to give him the honor because he doesn't want to empower his political rivals. And he's trying to justify some bull like he's not.
Wait, Crassus did it, and Augustus didn't want to do that?
Anyways, I might be mixing up my names.
Yeah, because Augustus, Crassus, those are different.
Yeah, suffice
eras.
it to say it's Augustus and his political rival, one of them.
So it would be Mark Antony?
But it's way after he becomes emperor.
Oh.
Or Princeps.
And then maybe it is a Crassus. I don't know.
Anyways, it might be a guy named Crassus.
Okay, a guy named Crassus.
I don't know. The most important thing is about Livy's historiography here is that he's telling the story
right
about the past, like the first guy who did that.
Yeah.
Or the second guy. And he basically, this is the only time like Augustus kind of interjects in the text, because he'll be like, oh, he was telling the story and he goes, oh, this is an important issue even today for us. Whether or not he was a military tribune or whether or not he was a consul, because there's two literary sources that say he was. One says he's a consul, one says he's a military tribune.
Mm-hmm.
For Augustus, this is important because if he was a military tribune, it means he can't deny his rival the honor.
Oh.
So Augustus says, I'm going to solve this problem. He goes into the temple of Jupiter, because you're not really supposed to go in the back. It's like a sacred area, but he's
okay.
He's
the Princeps.
He can do what he wants. He goes in the back. He says, I read the plaque. He was a consul. Therefore, he can't. And then Livy says, as far as in my reading and in my professor's reading, but it's debated. He says basically, our great and glorious Princeps Augustus went back and solved this historical issue for her. He's probably being really sarcastic about how much nonsense that is.
Oh, I'm sure.
But then what cracks me up is then right after he goes, yes, and this would be easily, and then I could have consulted there's all these, they call them the linen rolls, which have all the names of the magistrates for every year, going back to even when this guy was in charge. He goes, but I'm going to leave the issue at that. I'm not going to consult the rolls.
I think if he does, he risks upsetting the emperor.
I think it was a political
I don't think it's disinterest. I think he's recognizing that the emperor has made this decree. If I look into it any further, I'm risking my own life.
But it's a common theme, though, that they don't really cite government sources. They cite other authors. They don't really do primary source work in ancient Rome.
Oh, why would the other guy lie?
Yeah, basically.
Why would anybody, any writer, some aristocrat being supported by some other rich guy, usually an emperor or something, why would they say any untruths?
Why would they lie? But yeah, all this to say that they're probably, at least in my opinion, I don't know about you, that they're supposed to be like moralizing. It's like a foundation myth for the Romans. It's like a moralizing tale that you're supposed to take a lot from, that's probably based in some level of reality. Like, they were probably kings. They probably did a lot of these things. Like I said, there's evidence for those great buildings.
Is there like coinage and stuff with their faces on it or something?
It predates coinage, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because someone asked that in our class too, and that would have been really good. But there's really no way to date. There's no inscriptions either with these people's names.
They said there's an inscription with like Rex in it.
With the king, but it doesn't have any names.
Oh.
Because it's describing basically the ceremony that the king, like what he has to do.
Oh.
It's like almost like a guide to like the ceremony he's supposed to take part in. But there's no like, we haven't found tombs or epitaphs that say it like, Romulus or
well, it does sound like it does sound like a very ceremonial role then. If like the ceremonies is the only thing that's left, and it's like, well, it sounds like,
and it's always religious. They're very entwined with the religion.
Yeah, it seems like a divine position more than it is like an administrative one. So like you said, it might be like a moralizing thing to be like, we had kings, they did stuff, but they don't make decisions, and we shouldn't have a king to do it because then they would lead us astray.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you think about it as, like you said, like a clan system, or at least something similar where it's a bunch of people who came together to found a city. Like, especially if it is outcasts, probably people who didn't like kingships. So they like, probably, I'm imagining from the beginning, especially if the Senate is there from the beginning.
Yeah, they're there from the first king.
So, like, I have trouble believing that the first king would gather 100 guys to have as an advisory council.
100 of the most powerful and influential people in the city.
Yeah, and they wouldn't come together and try to enforce their power in any way. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of suspicious to me. Like, oh, they were so nice. They were an advisory council. They're helping this guy rule, but Romulus. He was still the ruler, right? Romulus, Rome. It's still his city, and he's still our kind of god almost.
And a lot of this is also in an effort to explain, in their own way, why they managed to become as powerful as they did. They're like basically saying their city is so important.
Yeah, they had to.
That's why there's so many omens and stuff. It's like that they're predestined, even though in reality they were like a tiny town, and it's by force of luck and their position and like a lot of other factors that they do end up becoming, like in Livy's time, the hegemon of the Mediterranean. Like at this point they've conquered Carthage and Greece and
right. They
Asia
don't
Minor.
Have any rivals on the Mediterranean, really. Interesting.
It's a weird time, and I would really love to know what actually happened.
Man, if only we had a time machine.
We probably won't ever know.
Listen,
makes for good stories.
We just got to dig up the entire Italian peninsula. Just dig the entire thing. Let's not use dynamite. It didn't work. It hasn't worked really. Let's dig it all up. All the buildings, we can just put them somewhere else for a second. Look under them, right? And then hopefully we can uncover the entire history of the peninsula.
Yeah. I think, but I think it more than anything, Livy is a really useful source on more about what was going on in his time, because you can read between the lines a lot about what he's saying about his past and what it says about Romans in his day. But there are some parts that I think are useful, especially when you get into the Republican period.
Well, I guess like their conception of their history,
yeah,
right? Which I think that is more useful than the actual history. It's like, okay, well, what did they understand their history to be?
And what did they value? Like, what did they say was, what's Livy saying? Oh, this is a noble guy. This is a person we shouldn't emulate. It tells you a lot about Roman culture in his time.
And also it kind of gives you the inconsistencies within their own like moralizing and their own culture, right? And like that's something we study a lot when we go to like Greek mythology, right? Is the inconsistency between the ideal of like the perfect guy and like what their stories actually were. Because it's like, okay, well, you have to respect your family, you can't do anything, but the founder, who's kind of a god, killed his own brother because they couldn't decide because they couldn't decide the hill, and they couldn't decide a name or whatever, and then like that kind of thing, and then, well, you still shouldn't do it. But it says a lot about like our culture, because even like if I'm thinking today, I think there's a general understanding that revenge, like in real life, isn't a good thing.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't like devote yourself in like a blood feud with someone, even if they've done you wrong, because it's not like you have to move past it and like reconcile all that stuff. But we love revenge movies, man. We love John Wick. We love those kind of Old Boy. We love those stories.
The whole, like, if you want to give a Roman example, they're always like criticizing people for fighting dishonorably, but I'm so sure, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm so sure if you go through Roman history, there are definitely generals who are lauded for their military ability, who just like do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
like
for
that.
their genocides.
Yeah, like, well, Caesar, yeah.
Which I don't know how honorable that is, to wipe out an entire society.
It's also weird because I do find the fact that the kings are Etruscan and they accept that to be odd, considering there's such a xenophobic culture.
Well, there is xenophobic culture in Livy's time.
That's what I mean, but like the fact that was preserved through oral history or something, and that they're still telling that they didn't change that with time, like it didn't adapt. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these,
right? But I think at that point they'd already subjugated like the Etruscans, right?
By Livy's time, yeah.
But then there's no
dying out.
Threat, right? Like even later on in Roman history, what I think is super interesting, there was a lot of respect for like Hannibal, even though he like slaughtered Romans to a degree, claimed closest to like really defeating Rome in a war, but they still like respect him in a way, right? I think there's a certain aspect of like the Carthaginians aren't a threat anymore. You're not like respecting the hero of an enemy nation. You're respecting a guy who put a good effort. Who's
basically
like the Etruscans, like they had some pretty good culture and stuff, but we've like moved past it. Like we've evolved beyond the Etruscans, because not only have we gone past the Etruscans, but now we've even conquered the Greeks and again the Carthaginians, the Iberian Peninsula, all that stuff.
But I also think they undersell the influence of the Etruscans on their own culture. Or maybe by Livy's time, they just didn't know. It's so far away.
Yeah, well, that even goes more to it, that they undersell it, that they're like, again, they've moved past it, right? Yeah. It's like, yeah, they were there in the beginning. We had some kings, but like, we don't care about them anymore.
But even if you look at the evidence, like because the Etruscan cities are older than Rome, like 200 years older than Rome.
Significant time, yeah.
So you get the Etruscan League, which is like this confederation of a bunch of cities.
Okay.
And if you look at the archaeology, like Rome's temples are built in the Etruscan style for a long time before they start emulating Greek styles. Their pottery is really similar to the Etruscans. So they owe a lot culturally. And even Livy makes a point to say that in those days, even in the early Republic, they didn't learn Greek as a second language; they learned Etruscan.
Right.
Because until they conquered the Etruscans, that was their pure power, right? Because again, you got to remember, this is like, it sounds grandiose, but they're fighting over Tuscany this whole time. So their pure power is the Etruscans. So they all learn the Etruscan language, and that's why so much of Etruscan literature and stuff survives. So I don't know, but I know they probably downplay it a lot because it kind of eats into their narrative. We're the superior city state.
But that's the thing, like they can acknowledge that kind of influence at all, because they would never say, like, one thing that I find interesting a lot in like Roman history, especially when you get to like the empire stages, is the influence of like Persian influences, like cultural and especially religious influences, because there's a lot of that comes from like the Middle East and the either the Parthian or the Sasanian empires. But they never acknowledge. That is never like even mentioned. It's never, because
that's a peer, that's a rival. Right?
That's a rival. You can't give that to them, because they're not only they've been a rival, they've been a rival that's been unbeatable for like the longest time. They've been around forever. So you can never really acknowledge that part, right? But you can acknowledge, again, Hannibal, the Carthaginians, even if like you destroyed their city, like they still have great warriors and all that stuff. And even like the fact that like the Romans like adopted their ships, right? Like they're like, oh, Roman didn't come up with this. It's not a Roman idea to have like the best ships. No, we actually adopted Carthaginian ships. And like the only reason they can do that is because they ended up defeating the Carthaginians, is that they used their own kind of technology against them. And then the Etruscans, like we used their infrastructure and stuff to create a better society, and then we defeat them. Same thing with the Greeks, right? But you can't say that about the Parthians / Sasanians.
But it's true that you see that in a lot of culture, because even like if you want to think about closer to home here, like I don't know, in the States, for example, there's a lot of famous like indigenous.
You got like, Geronimo, or like Sitting Bull,
Crazy Horse, Canada, who are, are fighting the American government. And
they were like, enemies in a war.
Yeah, but they're viewed that way, and they can be viewed that way because their people were subjugated, defeated in the end.
How many in the States? How many Soviet generals can you see them like respecting in that way? Like they don't say General Zhukov. But even then, they haven't subjugated Russia.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Like I don't think that'll ever be the case. Like there's more respect for maybe modern leaders, but that's more of like a cultural globalization kind of effect. But like there was no like. Well, I kind of respect Zhukov for his role in defeating the Nazis. Like, there's this, you don't really hear much of it, even if people again, in a world with like academia and like a greater respect, you definitely see that more often now than you would back then. I'm sure, like especially since we don't have records of like, peasants and stuff like with their thoughts on like what was going on at the time. But when it comes to like government archives and like what they would care to keep, you don't really hear that like. These Soviet guys, their scientists were actually pretty cool. Like they got to build nukes before, like after us, and their spies were pretty effective. Like there's no like respect for the Soviet spies or for the Soviet warriors or anything. That doesn't exist because there's no subjugation. Like even if they did win in a way, like over the Soviets, still around, the Russians are still around, and there's still a lot of that ideology around. So. No respect is paid. In this instance, like for the Romans, they can acknowledge the Etruscans. Like even was it Claudius? Like he wrote a book on the Etruscans. Yeah. Like even by that point, there was still acknowledgement of the Etruscans as kind of being an important part of that history, an important part of their culture, because they defeated them. They know how it turns out. Rome is still better.
Yeah. Well,
but let's look at our influences. Let's It's like the was it like the noble savage kind of
it's
idea.
It's almost the same. It's not exactly the same. It's almost the same concept of, now that we've conquered them, like we took they had some good ideas that we took from them. And, like,
we all respect them. Their culture is worse, and we'll impose our own culture on them.
We took what they did.
The snowshoes are pretty cool.
Yeah, the snowshoes are pretty.
Yeah. Again. We haven't really changed all that much in this time. Yeah. You still see this kind of thing going on. And I do think that is very interesting when analyzing. Again, what's more interesting about the kings of Rome, like you said, is like how they viewed it themselves later.
What it says about Romans, like how Romans viewed their origins, less about what actually transpired, because like we'll never know probably.
Yeah. And then mapping on like how we think of our own history is kind of interesting. Like what kind of parallels.
Who are our 7 kings of Rome? Who do we mythologize like that? It's like their founding fathers, basically.
Yeah, I mean, here I don't think we have had long enough history to have that.
Oh yes, the fathers of Confederation.
Yeah, I think we've gone pretty quick to disrespecting those guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess, I don't know what equivalency that would be. Again, Rome is still in a unique position, so they're like, not all of it is the same, right? And I'm not going to sit here and say.
We're just like
the
Rome.
U.S. is just like Rome. Like we're in Canada, but obviously Canada isn't Rome.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. It's too tempting to draw a lot of parallels. There is you got to remember they are still people and they still do human things.
But because they are people, and there are those similarities, those parallels. That you can again. I love putting myself in the shoes of these people.
In the toga of the Romans.
Their toga, in their sandals.
I think that's just about all I had to say. I don't know if you have any closing comments or.
I mean, that was very interesting. I think we're doing good on time, and I don't really have much else to add. That is a very interesting story, and hopefully it makes people think about how they think of their own history.
Yeah,
right?
hopefully. I think that's the big takeaway is be critical of your conception of your own past too, because
exactly. Still use evidence. Still be analytical. Still look at different views, and you don't have to commit to one necessarily. But
and you have the luxury of not being Livy and having way more sources to examine.
And thankfully, Carney won't walk into the Canadian archives and be like, "This is the truth," and then we all have to be like, "Yes, Mr. Carney,"
and then destroy everything that contradicts him.
Exactly. We don't have that. But being critical of your own history is good. I think so. Yeah, and I think we'll sign out now. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Max, for presenting that. No problem. We'll see you next week, Wednesday.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Bye.